Hello everybody, it's late afternoon now here at the Nürburgring. Just 5 o'clock Central European summertime. I'm John Hindorf and this is Audi On Track, live from the Audi Sports Studio right next to Mission Control, where all the data is being mined by the engineers and turned into performance, actually, is what it's being turned into. We've not got too long before we head into what's been called top qualifying this year. A little bit of a different format from what we've seen in the past, but it will culminate in a single car qualifying, which I have to say I wasn't too keen on when I heard about it coming here. I wasn't sure what it would mean the last few years, but it's been brilliant. It's super entertaining, and with the weather perhaps being a little bit dodgy, then the question is, how many chances will people take? I can't answer those questions, but we've got some drivers who have joined us who possibly can. First of all, welcome back, Marcus Winkelhock. Marcus, thanks for being with us for the number 3 car, P8 in the combined qualifying. First of all, how happy or unhappy were you in the team with your qualifying?
We are actually quite happy so far. We didn't actually look at the result if you are P3, 5 or 8. For us, the main important thing was like to be happy with the setup of the car. The behavior of the car was nice. We all felt quite confident, and I think we have now quite a nice weapon to go into the race like that. For sure, it will be mixed conditions, so you always have to judge if you want to go more with a rain setup or dry setup. You know, this is like, it's not easy. It's not an easy decision for the race, but I think we have found a quite good solution setup-wise.
What do you tell Mirko, because it is Mirko who's going out to qualify, isn't it? What do you say to him, or do you not say anything to him? Do you just say, right, it's you, you are it?
No, Mirko knows what to do. For sure, we were talking about wet conditions, especially now. It's going to be quite difficult for everybody. So we were talking about or sharing our experiences. Which line, where's grip, where's no grip, where should be careful if there's a lot of water, where's like rivers going over the circuit, stuff like that. And I think we both agreed that we shouldn't go too much risk. For sure, always you want to go as fast as possible in qualifying, and you want to be as best possible in the front rows. But at the other hand, you could see yesterday with the Merc and the Porsche, it's quite easy to lose the car under difficult conditions, and for sure we want to start the race tomorrow. So it's like you have to find a middle way of going risk and going fast, but still try to be a little bit safe.
I think we've got some footage from earlier on in the week which we'll roll in whilst we're talking, and have a look to see some of the great images that you always get here at the Nürburgring. And the climb up to the bottom of the carousel, super important place actually as you head up through Kesselchen Klostertal, because that's all about not turning the wheel, but you still have to go around corners. You want to keep as much pace as possible.
Absolutely, it's like I don't know how many kilometers it is, uphill part, and in rain as well. Like if you go, for example, Kesselchen, it's a quite fast left-hander kink. If you live there too much, you lose quite a lot of time until it's called Mutkurve. So yeah, and this is what I said before. It's all about how much risk I should go now in qualifying.
And that is the point, isn't it? We have a 24-hour race, so how important is qualifying? That's what people always ask me about endurance racing. But it surely is always better to be close at the front at the start.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the Nordschleife has been more and more coming up a sprint race over 24 hours. So like I think 10 years ago, if you were starting from pole position or P15 was not that important. But I think in the meantime now, the last couple of years, especially when it was dry, you had to be in the leading pack because you were losing quite a lot of time or gap to the front runners. From that point of view, I think it's quite important to be in the top 10, but this year is going to be completely different with this mixed conditions and wet conditions. So I think if you are fast, it's easier to overtake, it's easier to keep the gap to the front pack. So I think if you are not in the top 10, it's not a big disadvantage this year, to be honest. I think it's about to keep the car on the track, especially over the whole night. You have to be patient. I think it's also always very easy to say, because if your engineer tells you you are 5 seconds off or even more, but you are safe, maybe it's better to be 7 hours too slow overnight a little bit, but you survive it. And maybe some other guys, they go flat out over 6 hours and then they lose the car. So at the end, we have seen it's probably good to be patient and bring the car over the night.
And if you make it to sunrise this year, you're going to be a lot closer to the end of the race than you would have been at the normal time of the year. We often hear engineers, so talking more about the race now, although we have got top qualifying to come, so stay with us. But often hear engineers say push without risk. Now, how do you do that? It's a question I've often wanted to ask. Now, without saying anything that'll get you into trouble or me into trouble on the broadcast, what do you really want to say to the engineer when they say push without risk?
I better don't say anything back. No, because I know what they mean, but it's so difficult, especially if you're on slicks and it starts drizzling on the Nordschleife, and if this happens even at night, it's absolutely horrible. And I think the Nordschleife is like a mountain. The Nordschleife is always stronger, and you cannot imagine. I think only a race driver understands what I'm talking about. If you are at night on the Nordschleife with slicks in maybe damp conditions, it's and sometimes you think you're just going safe, maybe, I don't know, 85-90%, and all of a sudden you have a big snap, you almost lose the car. It's like you're never 100% safe.
And here in particular, all right, even with some fewer cars this year, but the amount of decisions that you're having to make behind a wheel when you come up, whether it's the daylight and you can see the car ahead and it's a slower class car, or it's a pair of taillights that you don't know if they're going slow because they've got a problem, you don't know if they're going slow because it's a lower class car, and you're making those decisions split second, not just once or twice a lap, 10, 15, 20, 30 times a lap.
Absolutely, yeah. I think in one stint on the Nordschleife, I have probably more dangerous situations than in a whole season of GT Masters or whatever. So it's like when you get out of the car, it's like you're like, fuck, what happened the last hour in the car? It's like you have so many crazy situations you cannot imagine. It's like sometimes you're going with 200, 250 with two wheels in the grass because there are two Clios fighting and they're going next to each other. So it's like...
And they're having their race as well, of course. So they're tied up in the moment as well.
Absolutely, they are also racing, and I tell you, for them it's probably even more difficult because they are focused on their own racing. And on top, they have to watch the mirrors all the time coming for the upcoming GT3 cars from behind. So it's absolutely not easy for the slower cars.
But you want to keep coming back and doing it because that challenges you as a driver, and you clearly think as a driver that you can make a difference.
Absolutely, yeah. I was actually always somebody who was quite good in traffic, I would say. I like the traffic. You can gain quite a bit of time. You also can lose, obviously, a lot of time, but I always liked the traffic. This was special on the Nordschleife. So this year it's going to be a little bit different because we have like half of the amount of cars compared to the last couple of years. But it will be a fast race for sure this year then.
Thanks for coming up and seeing us again. And we'll, I'm sure, talk to you again over the weekend.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you. Marcus Winkelhock joining us here ahead of top qualifying, which comes up a little bit later this afternoon. And of course, you can stay on Audi On Track to watch that. We have the international feed running alongside what we're doing, so you can join Johnny Palmer and Peter Snowden, who'll be doing the commentary for that for RSL and indeed for the international TV feed as that comes across later on when we get the car on track. Let's move back to the number one Audi Sport Team Phoenix entry, and welcome back Nico Muller, who is with us again this afternoon. Let's find out what's going on down there as they head into top qualifying. Nico, nice to see you again.
Hello again.
Clearly, well, hopefully you're not qualified, otherwise you're going to get me into trouble. You shouldn't be standing here talking to me. Who's qualifying your car?
Yeah, it will be Fred Verish, who's driving the number one Phoenix Audi. A guy who's very experienced up here. He's won the race last year. He really knows what the job is about. Super quick on one lap. Pretty confident that he's the right guy for the job.
Now, is it a blessing or a curse then to get chosen for one lap qualifying, for top qualifying? Because you can be a hero, but you can make yourself very unpopular. And as we've heard, the differential between one and the other is very small indeed here.
Yeah, it really is. But I've been in the situation myself. I've done it 2 or 3 times. It was called top 30 qualifying back then. Now the situation is slightly different. I mean, we've all been qualified. All the 3 Works Audis have been qualified for the top Q2. So that means in worst case, you're going to start 18th. Even if you don't have a lap in top Q2, you're still going to be 18th, which was different in the past. You could have been back in P30. So now, let's say you have a bit less to lose, but still, you don't really want to start a 24-hour race 18th. Yeah, it's a very long race, but still, after the first stints, when you first time hit the traffic with the GT3 train, coming up to the second starting group, you can very quickly lose a minute. And these races have become so competitive that it's difficult to catch up a minute during the course of the race. And you don't really want to be on the back foot at any point of the race. So you really want to be somewhere in the top 10 to start this big event. And I'm very confident that Fred, will find the right compromise between pushing it to the limit, but still keeping a little bit of that safety margin.
We've got some images of your car in action, which we'll play out now. Very different conditions there earlier on in the week, and unusually quite a clear run in that bit of footage that we're looking there. It was Fred behind the wheel at this point that we join him, and that's very unusual on the Nordschleife.
Yeah, it does feel very different this year with the less traffic. We have, I think, a bit more than 90 cars on track at the same time. Still, the speed differences are huge, and that's what makes this race very unique. As Marcus said before, there's Renault Clios with 200 horsepower, and we come flying by with more than 500. And yeah, you really have to judge those differences in split seconds and make the right decisions. And you can very easily bin the race in these situations, but you can also win or lose a lot of lap time. So yeah, that's what makes this race unique.
I talked about making decisions, split-second decisions with Marcus a moment or two ago. That has to be instinctive, though, presumably, Nico. You can't think, ooh, should I go past here or should I not? Because by the time I've done that, the opportunity to make that overtake, even if it is on a Clio, that's probably gone at that point, and then you are in danger.
Yeah, exactly. And I think most of the time it's better to commit to a move, even though it might be risky at the first sight, than to hesitate. Because also the guys you're catching up on, they don't want to lose time looking at their mirrors and trying to find the optimal way to let you by. They just want to get rid of you as quickly as possible, which is the same for us. So yeah, I think sometimes it's better, to squeeze through and to take a little bit of risk than actually waiting, a car length more or wait for the next corner and just, create confusion in those situations. I think it's important to be clear.
There's so many places here where momentum is key as well. And if you do get stuck behind a slow car for a couple of corners, even if it's a short distance on the track, that could be 15 or 20 seconds gone right there.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, I mean, you've mentioned before, where we go up Moot Curve, if in that section where we're flat out for, I think, more than 25 seconds, yeah. If you catch a slow car, maybe going side by side with another one there, and you lose 50 kph going up the whole straight, it's a lot of lap time that it's gone. So yeah, you need to make sure that you put your moves at the right moment, and yeah, sometimes you have to hold back. Sometimes there is no way around losing those 3-4 seconds. But whenever you can get rid of those cars quickly, you have to do it. Otherwise, yeah, the loss of time is just too much.
So as we go into top qualifying, were you and the team happy with P5 for the number 1 car?
Yeah, I think in our situation, as I mentioned before, where we were already qualified for the top Q2, it wasn't about the result in these qualifying sessions, the Q1, Q2, Q3. It was more about getting, all of us drivers, all the 4, up to speed again, get a good feel for the car, and make sure we're happy with how the car is behaving in those changeable conditions. Me personally, I've not done many laps in the wet here on the Nordschleife, and it was important, to get a few in last night and this morning.
That might change this weekend,
yeah,
Nico, I think.
It will, for sure. So no, it was good to get to grips with everything, fine-tuning the car a little bit. I think we've done another small step in hopefully finding some more performance for the top Q2 now. Fred will let us know in about 2 hours' time. But no, quite confident, feeling good, and happy with the teamwork has been proceeding so far.
Thanks for spending some time with us again, and we'll talk you over the weekend.
My pleasure.
Nico Müller from the Audi Sport Team Phoenix #1 car. Before we wrap up here, I want to grab Frank Bieler in and get the knowledge that only Frank can bring to us. Good afternoon, Frank. Nice to see you again.
Hi, John. Nice to see you again.
The top Audi, actually, was in terms of the combined qualifying, was P2 for the #5 Phoenix racing car, and they've actually now been fastest in a couple of sessions. Frank Stippler, though, he's a legend round here. He knows his way.
Yeah, he's doing this for, I don't know, many years. He knows every single centimeter on the track. And I think everybody respects him as a very good driver on the Nordschleife. What he proved a lot of times. So he is in a good position. Of course, he's in 2 good driving squads. So best chances for him.
Now, we've been also keeping an eye on the myriad of screens that we've got around, and just over here to my left is the final lap going on at the moment of World Touring Cars, and the reason we've been watching that is to find out what the track conditions are like for top qualifying. And typically Nürburgring, Frank, if you looked out on some parts of the track, even possibly the start-finish straight just over my left shoulder here, you might think, oh, I might give slicks a chance there, but round the far side of the track, it's definitely wet weather tyres.
Yeah, definitely, as we can see. And it's always very difficult to judge because it's such a long track, and especially with the weather conditions today and probably for the whole weekend. It's difficult to tell where it's going to wet, where it's going to dry. And a dry Grand Prix circuit is no guarantee for a dry Nordschleife, of course. Yeah, it takes a lot longer because you are in the forest, in the shade, if sun is coming. If not, it takes ages anyway to dry out. So it's going to be very difficult to judge what's the right tire choice.
Now, we talked earlier on in the week with Frank about tyres and about heating tyres. Now, there are tyre warmers, tyre blankets allowed here up to 50 degrees Celsius for the wet weather tyres and up to 80 degrees for the slicks. Now, that sounds hot to me, Frank. That 50 degrees is a hot, very hot summer day, and I would be lying out there enjoying it with some foo-foo drink with an umbrella in it. 80 degrees seems very hot to me, but for a slick racing tyre, that's not hot at all, is it?
No, you definitely want to have it up to 100, around 100 degrees. And the problem is, the blanket is on. They take it off as late as possible, of course. But then you have to go through the pit lane. You go out on the Grand Prix track. First few corners you have to be careful because the tires are not scrapped, so they're brand new, still slippery, even with some temperature in. And you have to make sure that the temperature doesn't drop until you are as soon as you go out on the Nordschleife, and that's the big challenge. I mean, going out there with a completely cold tire is suicide almost with 4 or 5 degrees outside temperature, and with the heated tires it should be a little easier, but I'm pretty sure it will be a big challenge.
So we've got some Audis that are already qualified, pre-qualified into top qualifying 2, including the 29 car. Chris Meese will take that. Fred Vervish we've talked about. He'll go out in 8th spot in TQ2, just literally getting the starting order coming through now from the organisers. Mirko Bortolotti will take the number 3 car out in 14th position. But before all that, we've got a very small opportunity for other drivers and teams to qualify, and that's what TQ1 is. If you think of Formula One, where you keep moving people through and you qualify through to the next version, well, that's what we're doing here, sort of. And going out first in the number 11 is Pierre Caffer. Now, that's going to be very hard indeed for the Iron Force Racing driver, but if anybody can do it here, it's Pierre, because he knows this place so well, Frank.
Yeah, he's also very experienced. He was on the winning car last year, so of course for him there's a good chance to make it in the top 4. Yesterday they said the top 4 will go into Q2 then. Correct. And yeah, they were not sure whether it's 4 or 5, but I think it's still forecast. So yeah, his job is to put it on position 1 to 4. But I think he has good chances. I was just talking to him before I came up here. And yesterday he feels confident, car is working well, so let's see what he can do in the top qualifying.
Also got Frank Stippler going out in the number 5 car. Well, we know what Frank can do around here. Stippy is brilliant. Rahel Frey, it goes out in 14th position. Now, what she'll be hoping for, I think, in the number 15 racing powered by HFG, is that the conditions improve, because clearly every car that goes before her can potentially make a difference to the conditions she gets on the track.
If we do not have some more rain coming, of course. Let's see how. I think the weather forecast is the rain is stopping soon, and then of course it is an advantage. The later you go, the better chances are to put a good lap time in.
So that is what we're going to see a little bit later on. Everything is being set up for it now. Frank is going to join me afterwards as we have a quick look. And with a bit of luck, and a fair wind, we might even get Alan McNish down in the pit lane to talk to some of the drivers. That's all going to depend on the final results from qualifying, but that's all going to be on the international feed, and you're going to follow along here on AudiOnTrack.com. So make sure you don't go too far away. We've got everything you need right here, live shows, plus the international feed as well. For the moment, Frank, thanks very much indeed. And come back and join me, John Hindhaugh, and some more guests later on this evening here at the Nürburgring.